Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and he and I are recording this week's show on Thursday, October 7th, 2021. This week's episode should be posted on Tuesday, October 12th, day after Columbus Day, or if you'd prefer, Indigenous People Day. Do we have a preference, Drew?
I think Indigenous Peoples Day sounds a lot better than Columbus Day. Although Columbus has some good movies. I rewatched 1492 Conquest for Paradise, the Ridley Scott movie. Very maligned, in its day, but it has some really interesting elements. So I would look at that. Okay. Yeah. What was the other one? Remember there was another Columbus movie that came out around the same time?
Was that the one with Tom Selleck is like King of Spain?
Yeah. What is... I feel like that was it Christopher Reeve who played Columbus?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, again, it was one of those moments where it's like, yes, you have the two competing projects going after the one tiny audience segment that will actually be interested in.
All right, it was George Coraface as Christopher Columbus, and you're right, Tom Selleck as King Ferdinand V. Obvious casting there, and yeah, a lot of the same people that produced the Superman movie. That's where I'm getting the Christopher Reeve crossover, but that was Christopher Columbus: The Discovery.
Oh, wow.
And the premiere took place at the same time as 1492 Conquest of Paradise. So
the family that made the Superman movies, and I love how they went from Superman to they made Santa Claus the movie, right. And now when I connect Superman to Santa Claus, the first person I immediately think of after that is Columbus.
Right. Well, apparently it was the movie was so hard to make that one of the brothers said, "I know after this I'll never make movies again." So there you go.
Wow. Yeah. Hooray for Hollywood. Okay. Wow. Well, speaking of significant things that happen on or about this date, we are just when this show posts, it'll be a day after Jodie Benson's 60th birthday. Little Mermaid just got a little older. She's 60, and it's really hard to believe that animated feature, which some people say kicked off the second golden age of Disney animation, I would argue Great Mouse Detective really did that. What's your take on that, Drew?
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I love Great Mouse Detective. Did you see that there's a new ornament that the Shop Disney is selling? I was about to say Disney Store, right. But we know that's not a thing anymore.
Well, there's supposedly 25 of them left hanging on by their fingernails, but yeah, none of them around here. But hard to believe The Little Mermaid, the movie, will be 32 years old this November. Equally hard to believe that Disney's live-action redo of The Little Mermaid, the one that's being directed by Rob Marshall, now won't arrive in theaters till May of 2023.
Yeah, but those animated to live-action adaptations always take a long time to do. So I'm not too worried.
Well, the rehearsals were underway last year, February 2020. Pandemic hits. They halt production. They don't pick up again till January of this year, and they only just wrapped production back on July 10th of this year. And originally supposed to arrive in theaters in 2022. This thing got announced back in May of 2016, and they weren't all that far down the live-action redo road at that point. Cinderella had only just come out in theaters March of 2015. You got to talk to Sean Bailey about these things. Did he talk about the lengthy turnaround process from doing one of these animated things, turning them into a live-action?
Right. I don't know if we talked about how long it took, but this was around the time of Beauty and the Beast, and so there was a lot of excitement around that prospect of remaking the animated movies. But I also wonder if this project got new life after Mary Poppins Returns and Moana and Disney kind of buying into Lin-Manuel in a big way, because he is obviously doing the new songs for this live action Little Mermaid, which I'm very excited about that aspect of it.
Also, to be honest, I'm looking forward to Melissa McCarthy doing Ursula. That seems like a great fit.
Yes.
Just hope she delivers the goods.
If I see her in the neighborhood, Jim, I will stop her and ask her. Well, I see her husband driving around in his golf cart a lot. So yeah, I will keep my eyes open for her.
You lead such an interesting life. Okay, I never get people in golf carts driving by. Raccoons on the porch, yes, but another story. By the way, this is not the only film with a pushback release date, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, the news portion of today's Fine Tuning is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. For a worry-free travel experience, please book online at storybookdestinations.com. On last week's show, we were just talking about how we still didn't have a release date for the fourth and final film in the Hotel Transylvania franchise, Transformania. Back in August of this year, Forbes reported that Amazon Prime Video spent $100 million to acquire the Sony Picture Animation production, and the assumption had been, Drew, right, that Amazon Prime Video is acquiring Hotel Transylvania 4 to be part of their October Halloween programming block.
Yeah, that was the assumption.
It's strange that now we do have a release date, and it's January 14th of next year. And at that time, it'll be released on Amazon Prime Video in 240 countries and territories. If we're going by the conventional show business rules, films, when they were theatrically released, if they got dropped in January, it used to be that this was a project that maybe the studio didn't have all that much confidence in. But those rules don't apply to streaming, right? Or...
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is, because I would think that you would want to hit while families are home for the holidays. Mm-hmm. Time off and everybody's at home. They're all around the same TV. You want to kind of get that. But the January release date doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's also very weird because, last week we talked about how at one point this was a Christmas themed movie. Mm-hmm. So yeah, to kind of go away from that Christmas theme and then kind of be back in the same window is very weird. I have a conspiracy theory, Jim.
Okay.
That I think that they might try to get Sandler and Kevin James back in the period between now and January to re-record the dialogue. Ooh. That's my little inkling, but I have nothing to back this up. So who knows?
Think about what extra gas that put in the tank with Aladdin and the King of Thieves back in the day. When they got Williams to come back in, and it wasn't Hagazaria, was it?
It was Dan Castellaneta.
There we go. All right, they're replacing everything that Dan had done. That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
This is animation, Jim. You can change a lot in a little amount of time, so...
This is very true. Okay, that would be interesting. Let's circle back on that. All right, speaking of another film who's had their release date bounced around quite a bit, Ron's Gone Wrong. This Locksmith animation film, which was announced originally back in October of 2017, was supposed to be released to theaters through 20th Century Fox in November of last year. Then, of course, in November 2019, after Disney acquires certain film assets and stuff from Fox, Ron's Gone Wrong's release date gets pushed to February 26, 2021. Then the pandemic happens, so Disney decides May 2020 to push Ron Gone Wrong all the way to April 23rd of this year. Then the Delta variant happens, which spooks a lot of people in Hollywood. So as a direct result, on January 21st of this year, Disney pushes Ron's Gone Wrong back to the release date we have now, which is October 22nd, 2021. That release date is held. Ron's Gone Wrong is supposed to have its world premiere at the BFI London Film Festival later this week, on Saturday the 9th to be exact. And we've got a stateside premiere set for October 22nd, and 45 days after that, it's available on digital platforms. Now, you've seen this at this point?
Yes. So I can talk about it, because this show will be out after the embargo break. So I have actually seen Ron's Gone Wrong.
And?
It's very charming. Mm-hmm. The character design is great. The animation by DNEG, this is their first feature-length animated film, is wonderful. The story is a little bit more wobbly, and I feel bad because of all these delays. A lot of it kind of feels a little bit old hat. I mean, as the second animated feature about technology run amok in 2021,
that's true. Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Yeah, and after a movie as good as Mitchell's versus the Machines too, and as genuinely new feeling as Mitchell's versus the Machines. It feels a
Mhm.
little old. Also, the kid Dylan Grazer, who plays the kid Barney in this movie,
Mhm.
is also Alberto in Luca. So not only that, but Jack Dylan Grazer
No.
has been in another,
Oh.
mismatched non-human buddy movie in 2021. So it's just that
Wow. I
also
didn't know
gives it a
that.
little bit of the kind of like, oh, this is like
Mhm.
it's been left in the freezer a little too long. You know what I mean?
I'm
But
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm such a fan of Sarah Smith's work. I mean, she directed this with Jean Philip Vine along with Octavius Rodriguez, and she also co-wrote the screenplay,
yeah,
right?
and she was actually not originally going to direct. She was just going to write the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Alessandro Carloni, who we know from the Kung Fu Panda films, was initially
Mm-hmm.
set to co-direct with Jean Philippe, and he left the project. She got bumped up to director, and the rest is history. But I also really think she's a wonderful talent and helped shape so many of those Aardman movies during that
Oh
period.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Okay.
still excited about what Locksmith has up its sleeve, but
And from this point forward, they're doing animation for Warner's, right?
yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
This is a company funded by Elizabeth Murdoch. Um, so maybe the Murdoch family isn't completely evil. Maybe maybe Elizabeth is the good one. But yeah, the next movie is called That Christmas. It doesn't have a release date yet, but it's for Warner Animation Group, with the animation once again provided by DNEG, which I love, obviously. But yeah, uh, apparently Natalie Fisher, who was the former COO of Illumination, is stepping in to co-run this outfit, and Sarah Smith will actually be leaving, which is sort of sad. But this kind of thing
Hmm.
happens.
Okay.
She's going to pursue her own creative endeavors, as the press release states. So there you go.
Honestly, these days, that's one of the challenges of doing a show like Fine Tuning is just keeping tabs on who used to work where and who's working where now. I mean, for example, you pointed out that just in the past week we had the announcement about Mark Andrews. He's the gentleman who directed Pixar's June 2012 release, Brave. He was the co-director with Brenda Chapman, right?
Well,
Or
he
that's how it.
was, I don't know, I think
Yeah,
he stepped in after Brenda was let go. I think that,
there we
yeah,
go. Okay.
yeah. Not to put too fine a point on it, Jim.
So Mark has teamed up with his former colleague from that Emeryville operation, Andrew Gordon. Andrew wore a lot of hats at Pixar. He was head of promotional content. He was the lead of the intern program, in addition to being a directing animator and a supervising animator. So he's kind of the guy you want to have on board if you're getting a new animation operation up out of the ground. But anyway, you pointed out Andrews and Gordon are teaming up with Israeli producer Oded Turgman to produce an animated fantasy drama for Fox called Hawkmaster. Do you want to share the logline for this?
I'll try to get through this logline. It's a little Dungeons and Dragons here, but okay. Hawkmaster
Okay.
is set in a fantasy world where knights riot against birds of prey, and Kess, a young woman who has always dreamed of flying, encounters a mysterious hawk without its rider, and soon finds herself caught up in a dangerous plot to kill the queen. With the help of the Four Winds, renegade knights banished from the kingdom, Kess will discover what it means to be a knight and trust your winged companion with your life. That old story.
Well, now, but it's funny you say old story because what this logline makes me think of is, have you ever heard of the Project War Eagles?
Mm-mm.
Miriam C. Cooper, the guy who produced the original King Kong back in '33. He wanted to do another project that featured, lots of stop motion so he could work with Willis O'Brien again. Storyline of War Eagles goes like this. Tale is set in the years just before the start of World War II. An Army Air Corps test pilot, while he's traveling pole to pole while flying in an experimental plane, crash lands on an uncharted island just above the Arctic Circle. Here, the pilot discovers a strange land by dinosaurs where a lost tribe of Norsemen ride giant eagles. Wait, it gets crazier? The pilot then hears over the wireless, which is the only thing that is still working and is now wrecked airplane, that the Nazis are about to launch an attack on New York City. They've sent a fleet of Zeppelins across the Atlantic that are armed with this powerful electromagnetic weapon, which means that all metallic things, planes, ships, cannons, are useless to stop the Nazi Zeppelin fleet. The only way to save New York City? This pilot has to persuade the giant eagle-riding Vikings to first fly down from the Arctic Circle to New York City and then attack those Zeppelins. And as crazy as that sounds, Cooper and Willis actually did animation tests. They built the animation rigs for a couple of the War Eagles. They prepped all sorts of storyboards and did concept film, and they came with Archaeo came within inches of actually putting this thing in production in 1940, and then got cold feet. And so everything that was done got put in the vault. In fact, who was it who was telling this story? It was a kid actor who was working on. Remember how Archaeo actually got bought by Desi Arnaz and Lucy?
Yes.
And it became, Desi Lufer. So, oh, damn it. I'm blanking the name of the kid actor, but it's literally, he's wandered off to the set into like a storage facility on the lot and finds this box where it's like he pulls the box out and it's like the King Kong armature and it's one of the dinosaurs and supposedly one of the War Eagles is sitting there in the box. And he gets called back to the set and never goes back. But Ray Harryhausen has spent the last 30 years trying to persuade various studios around town to revive Cooper and O'Brien's Dream Project. And there's a book about the project, War Eagles, The Unmaking of an Epic, that came out in January 2011 from Bear Manor Media. So, Hawkmaster, War Eagles, I'm just happy to see this idea in some form sort of show up on the screen. And if, who knows, if Hawkmaster works, maybe someone will take a flyer on War Eagles. On the other hand, I think we all remember Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, which also did kind of the attack on New York thing. And that really didn't work.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, again, that was a theatrical release, and maybe this would connect with an audience if it were on a streaming service. All right, switching now to television news. I know, given what a huge Gravity Falls fan you are, you have to have been happy with what happened on The Simpsons this past weekend.
Yeah, I could not believe that it actually happened. It's the one time that this kind of Disney corporate synergy thing has really paid off in our favor, Jim.
Can you tell people what happened? I mean, and again, this is the episode called Bart's in Jail.
Yeah, there was a kind of Loki-esque character, and at one point they kind of pan around the room of these mythic creatures, and there is Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls, and Alex Hirsch is voicing Bill Cipher, and he has one line, which is "Bye, crypto suckers," but it was just amazing, and you saw Alex's tweet, right?
I did. Do you want to share it, or?
So he said, from ages 8 to 18, I didn't miss a single Simpsons premiere. I read the guide till the pages fell out, knew the writers of each episode, and could tell you the season by the size of the characters' pupils. I am in total disbelief that I just did a cameo on the show. And I sympathize with him. I was that big of a nut as well back in the day. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It is. Now, to pin the needle in the other direction, I mean, Alex also has ties to Disney's Owl House.
Yes, both personal and professional, since he is dating the creator. This is true.
Right? And speaking of which, did you see what Dana Terrace, the creator of this Disney Channel series, what she said on Twitter earlier this week about why that production of that show is suddenly winding down?
I didn't. I saw some Save the Owl House hashtags, but I did not see her tweet. You want to read what she said? What
Dana basically said is that she heard third hand. I mean, this is part of the problem is that she never got to plead her case about the show, but she heard third hand that a Disney Channel executive had decided that Owl House really didn't fit the Disney brand. Now, she did go on to say that due to some of the LGBT characters on the show, we did have some issues airing in a few countries, and we're just straight up banned in a few more. But, I'm not going to assume bad faith against the people I work with in LA, but it's worth noting the Owl House production team was told to tighten its belt in regard to the budget in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, which makes sense. But the other thing that, frankly, Dana shared was that Disney just wanted to be done with the Owl House. And this was the sort of perfect storm of the pandemic and that sort of thing, gave them the chance to do this. And so we're not really getting a third season. We're getting specials, right?
Yeah.
Sort of standalone episodes.
Yeah, I did pick up on that through the Twitter talk. But that is really weird.
It is. And in fact, Dana goes on to say, even getting the Consolation season 3 episodes was difficult, apparently. Hard to say, because I wasn't allowed to be part of any conversations until I was just told. Wasn't even allowed to present my case. And then she goes on to say sarcastically, love the transparency and openness here, but that breaks my heart. It's a great show.
Yeah, it seems like some weird programming decisions are going on over there in regards to, here's our favorite phrase, Jim, Disney branded television, between the weird pulling the Amphibia finale, but not really pulling it from other places. And, all that kind of stuff. It seems just odd. And I can't believe that the channel that used to back such gutsy programs like Gravity Falls or, even things like Wander Over Yonder just a few years ago is now being so conservative. It's very disappointing.
It is. And I cannot help but connect the dots. You saw the story in the trades earlier this week about, it starts off with the story of the Disney summit, so to speak, that was held at Alani, and how Bob Iger is sort of his hail and farewell, speaking to the board about Disney shouldn't be a company that's driven just by numbers. It should take big creative swings. It should take chances, and which a lot of folks saw as Iger criticizing his successor, Bob Chapek, who is very much a numbers guy. So,
yeah, I don't think we would have gotten, especially what I know about the ballooning budgets of the later episodes of Gravity Falls, we would probably never have gotten Gravity Falls under the Chapek regime. So I think we should just maybe be thankful of that.
Okay. Well, speaking of things we should be thankful for, we are happier bitter news. We're getting a new Peanuts holiday special entitled For Old Lang Syne, which will come to Apple TV on December 10th. This Apple original is produced in partnership with Wild Brain. Also, kind of nice news that Apple and PBS are teaming up to offer classic Peanut special. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, and a Charlie Brown Christmas. They are going to be airing ad-free on PBS and PBS Kids. And it's just sort of like, wow, this is not the Apple company that I know. Though, speaking of Apple TV Plus, did you actually get to see Blush, the Joe Mateo thing?
Yeah. I thought it was really great.
I have not seen this yet. I've actually spent the better part of the last week cleaning out my basement, which Drew just sent me a letter earlier this week to the effect of, don't throw out treasures.
Yes. I hope you have a pile for me going in some corner of the house.
Speaking of which, I know your love of things that were never built. I actually found the front page stories from the Long Beach Telegraph, I believe, for Disney Seas. So
Yes, put those aside.
All right, but let's get back to Blush now, which I didn't get to see it, but did do some research on it. So this is a love letter for Joe Mateo, the gentleman who animated or directed the short. It's a love letter to his late wife, Mary Ann. Is there a dedication or anything like that?
There is. There's a photo of her at the end. And yeah, I mean, it really makes the whole short that much more poignant. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a heartbreaking story if you want to tell it. I mean, I did not know this, so I feel like you can speak to this better. But
okay, well, the story, as I understand it, is that Mary Ann and Joe meet when he's studying fine art at the University of Santo Tomas in the Philippines. And he goes on to say, our first week of college, I just heard this laughter that was filling up the room. I said hi, and as soon as I introduced myself, Mary Ann turned and blushed. And so the couple starts their life together in the Philippines, eventually immigrates to these States, and they wind up working at Disney. And I think you mentioned on an earlier show about Joe actually won an Emmy for as a storyboard artist on the wonderful Prep and Landing holiday special. And he then spends 25 years working at Disney, where he works on films like Pocahontas, Mulan, and Big Hero 6 before he finally heads over to Skydance Animation and blushes his very first writer-director project. Joe and Marianne have two kids, and then his wife becomes gravely ill. And 6 months after Marianne passes, Joe begins writing Blush. And there's supposedly a scene in the film that's based on his own experience about he was grieving and was gasping for air and realized that his late wife Marianne was basically the air that he breathed. He goes on to say, I remember struggling to go back to work, and so I just might as well do something with all this. And then I started thinking about it, and what stood out to me was struggling to breathe. I don't know what was happening to me when it happened. I ended up telling basically our whole story, our whole love story. So in closing, he goes on to say it was already a dream come true to him to make this love letter to my wife, but for it to be seen globally on Apple TV Plus is sometimes I have to pinch myself. So anything particularly stand out or just
I mean, the design is really, really wonderful. The kind of like, it's about a astronaut that crash lands on a planet, and then he encounters this alien and they fall in love. But yeah, just the kind of visualization of the planet, I think you'll really get a kick out of, Jim. It seems really fun and new, and the animation is just beautiful. And, I was a little bit like, oh, another love story from John Lasseter, who famously Pixar made a lot of love story shorts back in the day. But, getting that personal connection is really, really something. And I think you'll like it a lot. I thought it was very charming and
all right. I
emotional.
will definitely go and check that out. I
will. Before you watch before you watch the Ted Lasso finale, just throw this on for 10 minutes.
Okay, I will. It's just a quick side note here, though. I remember getting the chance to interview John Lasseter at the very first D23, which tells you how long this project was in the works. But they were talking about the Toy Story sequel that was going to be the love letter to his wife, Nancy. That was supposedly what the whole conceit behind Toy Story 4 was, the woman who made the great life possible. Yeah, they did do a lot of love stories.
I feel like this show is a love letter to your wife, Nancy, Jim. So I feel like it
all great things come from Nancy. Yes, that underline, circle, and indent that, folks.
Yes.
Of course, there are some good things that come from our sponsors, which you have to listen to these things for a few minutes. But Drew and I will be right back.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for this day.
What I bought? A new Blink Mini 2K Plus smart security camera. What I got? 2K clarity sharp enough to see every detail of home when I'm away. Plus audio like I'm in the room, not with my bestie traveling to another city. Plus easy plug-in setup to install faster than skipping through podcast ads. But you'd never skip ads, right? Plus, I got all of this for just $49.99. Blink Mini 2K Plus. Mini camera, max performance. Shop now at Amazon.com/Blink.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Okay, we were talking about television animation, and I realize we should probably be talking about this on Marvelous Disney, but it's animated, and it just ended, and I really feel like, Drew and I need to talk about Marvel What If, which I loved that last episode. What did you think?
Yeah, me too. Yeah, well, I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about it on the show is I think that this proved that animation maybe can do Marvel Studios stuff a little bit better than the live action, just because it's able to give that kind of scale and that scope in a way that live action cannot. If shows like the Falcon and Winter Soldier are any indication. So yeah, I thought this season was pretty amazing start to finish. I mean, there were a couple of so-so episodes in there, but the way that they brought everything together in these last couple of episodes was really, really something. And I was amazed. I thought it was a terrific show.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And we should take a few moments here to single out AC Bradley, the talented creator of the show. And the interesting thing is, given that, we talked with the guys behind the Troll Hunters movie a while back. I mean, she's known for her work on Troll Hunters Tales of Arcadia and Three Below Tales of Arcadia. And likewise, Brian D. Adams, the storyboard artist and gentleman who directed the shows, who worked on Star Wars Clone Wars and Samurai Jack, and not to mention actually working, you talked about, the Marvel Studios, the live action stuff. He worked on the live action Doctor Strange and Endgame. So, these are two people who really stepped it up. And did you see the Hollywood Reporter who did the interview with the two of them after the show? And they were talking about how Kevin Feige would literally tell them, you can use these, but not these.
Right.
Here are the toys you can play with, but these are mine. And maybe next season you can get to use these characters. And
as I was watching it, I was thinking, wow, this would have been a great Avengers type movie, in 10 years or something. The Guardians of the Multiverse is what they're called.
There you go.
Yeah.
Though the other thing that was fascinating about this article in the trades is they talked about how they so enjoyed working on that If T'Challa Had Been Star-Lord episode, that they actually began sussing out a spin-off of What If that would have put you with that crew and had them do all sorts of adventures. And I guess they got Chadwick in early to record that episode. And then, they just talked about how the other pickup stuff that, the other moments with Chadwick that you saw scattered throughout the rest of the series, they recorded that with him like a month before we lost him. Yeah, and everybody loved the idea of pursuing T'Challa's Star-Lord idea, but for now it seems kind of disrespectful with Chadwick gone to continue that. But they talk about maybe some point in the future we'll circle back to that idea. But speaking of season 2, that teeny tiny little snippet of Tony Stark and Gamora. In fact, I love that moment with the Watcher where he shows up in the scene and Stark starts to give him lip, and it's like, not you, Stark, I'm here for Gamora. Right. that was supposedly pulled from the one episode that due to the pandemic they couldn't complete in time for season 1. So that show's actually been bumped to season 2.
So that's going to be a full episode next season?
But the thing was, they had actually done this lighthearted episode with Tony Stark because they said, they were following the comments about the show on Twitter. And it was like, they made the joke to the effect of Tony Stark had basically become the Kenny of What If, that they were, they were repeatedly killing Stark in the show. And it's like, all right, let's do one where at least he lives all the way through the episode. So
that's coming.
Yeah, so we can look forward to that in season 2, but I'm sure they will continue to kill him on other shows. Did you have a favorite episode or a favorite moment out of this first season? Or
well, I actually really love the Party Thor episode, which I know some people are a little mixed on, but I thought it was so great at the end of that episode where the Watcher is like, and then they lived happily ever after. Oh wait, and that's when Vision / Ultron sort of makes this big debut. And then the fact that that storyline carries over the next couple of episodes, I thought was really, really smart and really inventive. And I just I loved how this finale brought everything together, from the zombies to everything. I just was really I was really impressed, and I love the art style. I love that kind of, the cell shading with the sort of traditional animated flourishes and effects. I thought was so cool. Were you a fan of that?
I very much so. In fact, we should make a point of pointing out the head of visual development for Marvel Studios, Ryan Manderlingen. He's the guy who helped sort of define that cel-shaded animation style that managed, I think what was fascinating was to bring the actual actors from the MCU into the animated world in a way that you bought.
Right.
But at the same time, we should also pay tribute to Stefan Frank, the head of animation. Likewise, how many studios worked in this? Spirit, Squeeze, Flying Bark, and Stellar Creative Lab. I mean, a lot of people worked really hard on this, especially during the pandemic. And the fact that it was this good under those conditions is really kind of stunning.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so great. I'm just so impressed with this.
Okay.
And as we were recording, Jim, they just announced, get ready for your next episode of Marvelous Disney, because they just announced a Agatha spin-off series.
Oh, no.
Yes, starring Catherine Hahn. The whole creative team is going to be back.
Holy
so
cow. Oh.
It really was Agatha all along, Jim, and she will be going along for another season on her own. So get ready for that.
Okay, so now again, pinning the needle in the other direction. I know from our own conversations and some of the stuff you posted on social media, you weren't necessarily there, but you were paying attention to what was going on at Walt Disney World with the 50th anniversary celebration.
Yes, I was watching as kites were torpedoing out of the sky, running at innocent guests and trees alike. Yeah.
Yes, it's an interesting bunch of offerings, and in fact, Testa and I will be down in Orlando in 2 weeks or thereabouts, recording a bunch of new walkarounds of the parks, and I'm hoping to check out some of this stuff in person, because it's like, I felt so bad for the folks who put together the live streams of Harmonious and Enchantment, because I really don't think these shows work as, YouTube videos, especially YouTube's video where you sort of plant a camera halfway down Main Street or... Yeah,
it was interesting hearing Len talk about the explosions that were going off in each country, because they didn't pan around. And, you and I were kind of just chatting off air, and I always loved the incorporation of the different World Showcase pavilions. Mm-hmm. And so it was good to hear that they actually do incorporate them. That it just wasn't in the live stream. But I have a request for your walk around with Len, Jim. Can you get him into the Main Street barbershop? Is that something we can do?
We have to hold him down.
At least get me a pin of the backside of Len's hair, I guess. That's the consolation.
That it is. I'm beginning to wonder if we're kind of in one of those Samson and Delilah situations. I think Len at this point is convinced that his strength comes from his hair.
Like the baseball player that wears the same pair of socks for every winning game. There we
go. We go. So, well, at least we hope Len's hair smells better than the socks. But
yes,
to be honest, it's not that much of a step down from Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary to, you were talking about the Mickey's 60th birthday TV special that ran on NBC back in November of 1988. And you were a big fan of this because of the interaction from Roger Rabbit interaction between Roger Rabbit and Mickey Mouse, right?
Yeah, I would love to know if Feature Animation actually did this animation, but it's a really interesting special because Mickey is presented as he's a character in the special. It's not like the 90th one where they had Dwayne Johnson come out and talk about Steamboat Willie or whatever. Mm-hmm. He's an actual presence in the show.
Yeah.
And I love his 60th anniversary look. Obviously, he looks like he just stepped off the set of Miami Vice. It's very cool.
Speaking of which, though, Mickey wanders into the bar from Cheers. I want to say Donald, who is believed to be involved in Mickey's mysterious disappearance, winds up hiring the lawyers from LA Law to represent him against Disney Studios. And
yes,
you mentioned that it's brand new animation done of both Mickey and Roger. And first of all, you have to remember, folks, Roger Rabbit had only just come out in theaters in June 22nd of 1988. So here's this special that airs on November 13th of that same year. And there's a special called Roger Rabbit and the Secret of Toontown. It's hosted by Joanna Cassidy, the woman who played Dolores in that Robert Zemeckis movie. But all of the footage in that thing is recycled stuff from the actual film.
Yeah.
They would do things like they'd run footage backwards so it looks slightly different than what you saw in the theaters. But the notion is just 2 months later, they were able to get something out the door that featured all new Roger footage and all new Mickey footage.
I believe there was original Roger animation too for a series of Diet Coke commercials as well.
This is true. This is true. Yes, yes. And in fact, that's one of the, famous reasons that Jeffrey Katzenberg basically threatened Don Hahn's career, to the effect of, we've signed a giant deal with Diet Coke. You will make this June release date. In fact, I think he gestured out the window to guys in New York who were putting asphalt on the streets. And it's like, oh, you're going to end up doing that. But yeah, it's an interesting special, though. If I have to pick a favorite of the Disney specials that ran in the late 80s, have you ever seen Sports Goofy in Soccer Mania?
Yes. And in fact, there was somebody I was talking to recently who I said, you worked on Sports Goofy and Soccer Mania. And they went, oh, yeah, I did. It's because I am fascinated about this project. And you want to talk about why it's so interesting?
Well, first of all, you got to remember that Roger Rabbit, before Steven Spielberg wound up as the producer and Robert Zemeckis wound up as the director, it was in development for 2 years, 3 years at the least, as a Disney-only production. The final film was, Touchstone and Amblin. But during that time, Daryl Van Sitters was the director. And eventually, when Eisner comes through the door, in order to get the proper version of Roger Rabbit done, he takes the project away from Daryl. And again, it's Spielberg is producing and Zemeckis is directing. But he's done all of this work on that version of Roger Rabbit, the one that was going to be voiced by Paul Rubens, right? Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, that design, too, is amazing. You can find an episode of, I think it's Backstage Disney, right? Where they kind of talk through the production. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can see this footage, and it is amazing. I love that design so much. I don't know if I love it quite as much as what they ended up with, but it is an amazing design. So I'm glad that they did something with it, right?
They did. Which brings us to the reason why you have to seek out Sports Goofy and Soccer Mania. So I want to say it's like in the last 10 to 15 minutes is actually the soccer game, the finale of the thing. And it's like, what you want to do is you want to watch this and pay very close attention to the crowd scenes. Because there is one when they cut away to the crowd where clearly dead center for just a few seconds in the crowd is Daryl's version of Roger Rabbit. You mentioned the Disney Backstage special. At one point, they show the animation tests that have been done with Roger. And at one point, don't they have Roger actually walk through the room?
I believe so. You also get to see that animated cop character.
That's right. Yeah.
And also the Russi Taylor version of Jessica Rabbit, which is really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the actor who voices Henry in the Country Bear Jamboree is the live action actor in those scenes.
Oh, Peter Renaday.
There we go. Yeah.
All right,
see, this is why I do this show with you.
Yeah, it's some amazing footage. And what's interesting, too, about that Mickey, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, because I know you will, that's where the footage from the Magical World of Disney opening, where Roger is seen kind of like being, like there's a metal door that's kind of closing on him. Do you remember that? It was in the final moments of that opening, which also is where the first, the test of the cap system was that the Tinkerbell animation in that opening, by the way, which is very cool. But I think that shot of the door closing on Roger is from that special, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you are correct.
Okay.
And like I said, folks, if you have some time to kill on YouTube, again, go there, check out Mickey's 60th birthday, and likewise seek out Sports Goofy and Soccer Mania. But on the other hand, if you're seeking out entertaining things.
Well, I have a tease, actually, Jim.
Ooh, okay. What?
that we might be seeing Roger Rabbit again sooner than we thought. But not in his own movie. That's all I'm going to say. If that is a bombshell, that you can just this is what I'm hearing from people. So
okay, you and I are going to talk about this off air.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of other entertaining things you can find online, seriously, folks, if you are not already listening to Light the Fuse, you are missing out on so many entertaining stories about the Mission Impossible film franchise. Now, I know you had some stuff that you really couldn't talk about just yet, but coming weeks, do we have?
We're talking to Ben Rosenblatt, who is a producer on Ghost Protocol, as a kind of lead up to Ghost Protocol's 10th anniversary. Can you believe it, Jim? 10 years since Brad Bird's live action debut. So, and we have also lined up the great Anthony Giacchino, who is Michael's now Academy Award winning brother and who produced a lot of the behind the scenes material for Ghost Protocol. So we suspect he will have some good stories from the totally crazy set of Ghost Protocol. So we're working on more guests to really celebrate this anniversary and one of my favorite entries in the Mission Impossible franchise. So look forward to that in the weeks ahead.
Wow. Okay. Well, on our side of the fence, we have some fun stuff coming up. In fact, I'm just doing Len, God help us, is on a cruise. So while he's out at sea, I'm going to be doing an episode of Disney Dish with his sister Chrissy. I would want to remind you, you're listening to Fine Tuning right now, and if you could do Drew and I a favor, if you get over to Apple Podcast and rate and review what you've just listened to here, and by the way, maybe throw in a plug for Light the Fuse, that would be helpful. Likewise, if you really like what you heard today, if you want to head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be fun. Beyond that, again, if you're not following Drew Taylor on social media, you are missing out on a lot of fun stuff. Can you tell folks how they can do that, Drew? How they can find you?
Yeah, Drew Tailored Like a Tailored Shirt on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, I'm always going off about something, but I promise that it's mostly in good fun. And you might even learn a thing or two, God forbid.
Always do.
Yeah.
On our side of the street, though, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Hill Media and over on Facebook at Jim Hill Media News. That's, of course, if Facebook is still up and running. I guess that's going to do it for this week. So thanks for listening, folks. And Drew and I will be back next week with a brand new show.